It started with a sound that shouldn't have been there. Old houses breathe, creak, and groan, but this was different, like a drawer sliding when no one pulled it. I had been in my childhood home for 2 weeks, helping my mother declutter, though the more accurate word would have been control. She wanted to keep everything where she could still see it, and I wanted to finally put my life in order by sorting through hers. That night, I was alone in the living room. The lamp hummed low, the curtains shivered with a wind too soft to rattle them. Mom had gone upstairs hours earlier. I should have gone to bed too, but my mind couldn't stop pacing. Something about being back in that house turned me restless, like I was 16 again, waiting for arguments that always came after midnight. So when I heard the faint scrape from the hall closet, I knew I wouldn't sleep until I checked. The closet door stuck as usual. I tugged harder, and the wood gave way with a sigh, revealing stacks of boxes, coats that smelled of mothballs, and a half-broken lamp my father had sworn he'd fix but never did. On the top shelf, hidden behind shoeboxes, was a metal lockbox. Its paint was chipped, its keyhole rusted. I pulled it down, surprised at its weight. No key. No problem. Years of startup work had made me inventive. I slid a screwdriver from the basement tool chest, pried at the seam until the metal moaned, and finally the lid gave. Inside, papers. Yellowed envelopes. Birth certificates. Legal documents. And one manila folder with my name written on it. I sat on the floor, pulse hammering. The first document was my birth certificate, or what I thought was my birth certificate. Except the father's name wasn't the one I grew up with. It wasn't the man who raised me. It was someone else. A name I didn't recognize. I read it again, sure I'd made a mistake. The ink blurred where my hand shook, but the letters didn't change. That's when I saw the photographs. Black and white first, then color. My mother, younger, smiling with a man who wasn't my father. The same man whose name was on the certificate. His arm wrapped around her waist. Their faces close. Intimate. In the back of the folder was a letter. No envelope, just folded neatly, as though someone had meant to send it but couldn't. I know the risk you're taking by keeping me out of his life. But one day, he deserves to know. He deserves the truth. The signature was the same name as on the certificate. I froze. The words burned through me. He deserves to know. But I had never been told. I shoved everything back into the folder, hands clumsy, heart thudding like a fist on the door. Upstairs, the pipes groaned as my mother turned in her sleep. I stood there, folder heavy in my grip, and realized the life I thought was mine might have been built on lies. I didn't sleep. I lay staring at the cracked ceiling paint, the folder on the chair beside me like a loaded weapon. Every breath I took carried questions I couldn't ask. Why would she lie? Who was this man? Was my father, the man I buried last year, even my father at all? I pressed my palms to my eyes until sparks danced in the dark. Maybe it was a clerical error, I told myself. A typo. A mix-up. But the photos, the letter, they screamed louder than my excuses. By 4 a.m., I sat at my desk, laptop glowing, searching the name. Dozens of results. Too many faces. But one matched the man in the photos. Older now, grayer, but the jawline was unmistakable. And he lived 2 towns over. Still alive. I shut the laptop, pulse racing. Tomorrow, I mean later today, I'd confront her. I'd hold the folder up to her face and demand the truth. But part of me hesitated. Because once I asked, once she answered, nothing would ever be the same. Morning sunlight painted the linoleum a weak yellow. Mom hummed as she cracked eggs, as though the night hadn't shifted the ground beneath us. She wore the same robe she'd worn for 20 years, the one with a missing pocket she never sewed back. I placed the folder on the counter between us. She glanced at it, then at me, Her humming stopped. Where did you find that? Her voice was sharp, brittle. In the closet, I said. Behind the shoeboxes. Why didn't you tell me? She froze, spatula hovering over the pan. You weren't supposed to see this. I wasn't supposed to know who my real father is? My voice cracked on real. Her eyes flicked to the folder. She set the spatula down slowly. He's not your father. He was someone I knew. Before. His name is on my birth certificate, I said. His signature is on that letter. He wanted me to know. Her lips pressed into a line. Your father, the man who raised you, was your father. Biology doesn't change that. But you lied, I said. The words were heavier than I expected. You let me bury a man thinking he was my blood. And you never told me. She flinched as if struck. For the first time, I saw guilt shadow her face. But she didn't deny it. You don't understand, she whispered. There were reasons. Things you're better off not knowing. I think I deserve to decide that for myself. I shot back. The silence stretched. The eggs burned. Finally, she turned off the stove, wiped her hands on her robe, and whispered, It's complicated. I stared at her. The woman who raised me, who scolded me, who held me when I cried, she was a stranger. Then explain it, I said. But she didn't. She walked out of the kitchen, robe trailing, leaving me with the smell of smoke and the folder that had ruined breakfast, and maybe my entire life. I needed air. I needed space big enough to hold the weight of the lies. So I drove to the park near the river, the one Dad used to take me to on Sundays. Or the man I thought was Dad. Children screamed with laughter near the swings. Joggers passed, earbuds in, oblivious. The world kept spinning like nothing had changed. But for me, everything tilted. I sat on a bench, folder beside me. Flipped through the pages again, each one louder than the last. His face in photo after photo. My mother's smile, softer with him than it ever was in my memories with Dad. I wondered, how many other lies were stacked beneath the ones I'd found? How deep did this go? My phone buzzed. A text from Evan, my closest friend since college. You home this weekend? Beer? I stared at the screen, thumbs hovering. Then typed, Need to talk. Big. Come over tonight. If anyone could help me anchor this storm, it was him. I closed the folder, pressed it against my chest, and whispered to myself, This isn't over. Because it couldn't be. Evan arrived the way good friends do, without ceremony, with groceries I hadn't asked for. He nudged the door shut with his foot, took one look at my face, and skipped the jokes. Show me, he said. We sat at the dining table. I slid the folder over like a bomb I'd already pulled the pin from. He read in silence, brows climbing, mouth flattening. When he reached the letter, he deserves to know, he stopped and stared at the words until they stopped looking like ink. This isn't a typo, he said finally. No, I said. It's a map. He thumbed the birth certificate again, as if pressure could conjure a different name. Do you recognize him? I found him online, I said. He lives 30 minutes away. And your mom? Tried It's Complicated, then left the room like I owed the conversation interest. Evan leaned back, hands on the chair like he was holding it to the floor. Okay, you need verification. Official, county level. And you need to decide what you want before you knock on any doors. What I want is the truth, I said too fast. He didn't shrug. Truth comes with paperwork. And fallout. Footsteps on the stairs. My mother appeared at the threshold, robe replaced by a cardigan she puts on when she wants to look like a boundary. Her eyes went straight to the folder, then to Evan. I don't want outsiders involved. I'm not an outsider, he said softly. I've been here every Thanksgiving you said bring a friend. She didn't look at him. You don't understand what you're stirring. Then explain it, I said. She pressed her lips together. I can't. Or won't. That landed. A flinch, barely there. He is not the man you think, she said, and for a second I couldn't tell which she meant. If you go after this, you can't come back. Something cold slid between my ribs. I'm not going after anything, I said. I'm going to the county clerk. Tomorrow. Don't, she whispered. Give me one reason, I said. Her answer arrived like a draft under a door. Because you might learn your father knew. The room tilted. Evan's chair scraped. Knew what? That he wasn't? That piece of paper, she began, and then the sentence unraveled in her mouth. She caught it with a different one. Please. Sleep. Think. Don't make this worse. She left. The air didn't. It stayed, dense and humming. Evan waited a full minute. If your dad knew, he said, that changes how we hold him in this. It changes everything, I said. Or, he said gently, it confirms what you loved about him anyway, that father isn't a blood type. I stared at the folder until the man in the photos blurred. Tomorrow, I said. County. Then him. Then him, Evan echoed, like a vow. We didn't talk much after that. He stayed until the house remembered how to breathe. When he stood to leave, he squeezed my shoulder, not comfort, not strategy, just a human reminder that one weight in the room didn't belong to me. Text me after the clerk, he said. Even if it's nothing. Especially if it's something. When the door closed, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt like a page waiting for ink. The county building smelled like toner and rain-soaked coats, and the kind of linoleum that never stops learning your shoes. A security guard waved me through with a boredom that felt oddly kind. At the records counter, a woman in her 50s wore a cardigan the color of seriousness and a name tag that read M. Alvarez. She greeted me with the patience of someone who has watched 1,000 families choose truth over convenience and has never once gotten to go home early because of it. How can I help you? She asked. I slid the birth certificate across the counter. I need to verify the original registration and any amendments. She adjusted her glasses, scanned, and began typing with the rhythm of rain. Mother's name? I gave it. Child's full name? I gave mine. Her screen threw up a light I couldn't read. Her eyes did the reading for both of us. There are 2 entries, she said. Calm. Almost bored. The original registration and a sealed amendment request that was denied. My tongue felt too big. Denied for what? She clicked. The screen held. Insufficient documentation, she said, then added, and a contradictory affidavit. The word contradictory grazed my skin like sand. From who? She didn't look at me. I can't disclose sealed defiance. But I can tell you what is not sealed. There was an intent to amend the father's name post-registration that did not pass review. The original stands. I swallowed. Is there a paternity action? Her fingers moved again. Stopped. A petition was initiated the year after your birth, she said. It was withdrawn within 60 days. By who? She chewed the inside of her cheek, a habit that probably started when she still believed in small talk. The system shows the petitioner as the named father on the original certificate. Her eyes lifted to mine. Not unkind. That aligns with what you have. So he tried? He tried? The letters in my head rearranged themselves into an apology I could not accept or a rescue I couldn't prove. Is there a contact on file? I asked. For the petitioner? She shook her head. Not for you, she said, and then, lower, like we were conspiring to obey the law. But voter rolls are public. Property records are public. File numbers are public. I understand, I said, which meant thank you for telling me what you can't tell me. She printed a certified copy of the original registration and slid it to me like a shield. If there's a records request you want to make formally, she said, come back with counsel. I might, I said. At the door, I turned back. Ms. Alvarez? She lifted her chin. Do you do this a lot? Verification? She asked. Fixing people, I said. She half smiled. We file the paper. People fix themselves. Outside, the sky had decided between rain and sun and chosen both. I stood on the steps with the certified copy warming in my hand and texted Evan, original stands. Attempted amendment denied. Petitioner initiated paternity action then withdrew, likely him. He replied in seconds. He tried. That matters. You seeing him today? Yes. I typed the address I'd found after midnight. Evan, want me there? Not yet, I wrote. If I don't text by 7, call me. If I don't answer by 8, come. 8 it is. Then, you got this. The building's glass doors reflected a man I recognized but didn't trust yet. I put the paper away like a good luck charm that doesn't believe in luck. I went back to the river. To the bench. To the place where 10 hours ago, I'd been someone else. Kids still screamed joy into the wind. A dog decided a stick was a lifestyle. The world did its heroic, stubborn job of continuing. I laid the two documents side by side, my copy and the county's fresh seal. They matched. Not just in names, but in authority. And there, between the lines and stamps, was a choice I hadn't been honest enough to name. I could let this remain an interesting fact, a private ache filed under probably better not to know, or I could step over the line into a new country and learn an entirely different definition of family. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it ring out, then answered with a voice that felt like it had been ironed. Hello? A pause. Then a man's voice, cautious, grain at the edges. Is this? He said my name like a secret he had kept in his mouth too long. Yes. This is Daniel Reed. He didn't say your father. He didn't say we should talk. Just a name like a key. My heart decided to stand up. How did you get my number? A longer pause. I kept an old address for your mother. I sent a letter there last year and got nothing back. Today a man called me from a number I didn't recognize and said 3 words. He knows now. He breathed. If this is a prank, it's cruel. If it's real, it's real, I said. Silence. Not empty, crowded, like a hallway before a door opens. Can we meet? He asked. Somewhere public. Or my porch. I don't want to surprise your life any more than I already have. I have your address, I said, and the old me would have apologized for the bluntness. The new me had run out of apologies he didn't owe. This afternoon? Anytime, he said, too quickly, the way hungry people say yes to bread. I'll be here. I hung up and realized my fingers were shaking. I texted Evan. He called. Porch. 4 p.m. I can be a block away in the car if you want a shadow. No, I wrote. But keep your phone loud. Always, he replied. The river moved past like a deadline with good posture. I folded the papers carefully, stood, and felt every hinge in my body confess how long they had been pretending nothing was wrong. The address sat at the end of a cul-de-sac lined with maples that had learned all the seasons and survived each one. The house itself was unambitious, 2 stories, blue siding, a porch swing that actually swung. Someone had trimmed the hedges recently. Someone cared. He opened the door before I touched the bell. Older than in the photos, yes, silver hair, The kind of shoulders that don't slouch even for grief, but the eyes were the same. It's strange what eyes do to memory. They stitch past to present without asking permission. "Hi," he said, and in that one syllable was apology, hope, terror. "I'm Daniel." "I know," I said. We stood there a breath too long. He stepped back. "I made coffee," he said, as if beverages could hold a bridge together. "Or water." "Water," I said. We sat on the porch because it felt less like a claim. The swing creaked once, and then learned our weight. He handed me a glass. His hand shook. Mine did too. "I went to the county this morning," I began. "They confirmed the original registration. They showed an amendment attempt that was denied. They showed a paternity petition that was filed and withdrawn." He nodded, as if I were telling him a story he had rehearsed and still couldn't get right. "I filed," he said. "Your mother begged me not to. Said it would ruin everything she had built with him. She brought me a letter that made sense until I tried to sleep. Your father," he stumbled on the noun, corrected it with a hand gesture. "The man who raised you, called me calm. He said he loved you. He said he would raise you as his own. He said if I tried to split a house with a court order, I'd be the villain in your childhood." He rubbed his face, hard. "I withdrew," he said. "I told myself I was being noble, that I was choosing your stability over my vanity. I wrote birthdays on a calendar and sent cards I never mailed. I moved, then moved again. I married late. No children." His voice frayed. He stared at his knuckles like they held a transcript of his cowardice. "I never stopped checking property records. Your school awards. Mentions in small-town newspapers. I kept a box." He stood briefly, disappeared inside, returned with a plain gray archive box. He set it between us. Inside, crisp envelopes with my name on them, never stamped. A Little League flyer with a circle around 3 p.m. A program from a high school play. A printed screenshot of a college announcement with my name in small bold among other names. A life observed, not touched. "I know what this looks like," he said. "It looks like neglect performing as restraint. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm a man who picked the wrong virtue and wore it too long. But I did not love you." I believed him and wanted not to. Belief feels like betrayal when you've been practicing anger all day. I pointed to the box. "Why now?" "Because last year I wrote to your mother and said he deserves to know," he said. "I said I would come to your door if she didn't tell you. She sent a single line back, 'Don't.'" He swallowed. "So I waited again. Then today a stranger called me and said he knows now. I thought it was a trap my heart set. But here you are." We sat with the box open between us while the neighborhood performed its evening. Kids in helmets, a couple arguing about mulch, a dog who didn't like squirrels on principle. Life went on, because it always does while you're deciding whether yours will. "Did he know?" I asked. The question had lived in my jaw since my mother said you might learn your father knew. Daniel looked at the porch rail like it might answer faster. "We met once," he said. "Before I withdrew. He asked me to sit in my car while he spoke to your mother in the diner. Then he came out and said he was grateful I hadn't made it a war. He said he would be better at being your father than a court could make me be. He said if I loved you, I would let you have one story." I closed my eyes. The ache behind them wasn't tears. It was a tectonic plate moving a fraction of an inch. "He asked you to disappear. He asked me to trust them," Daniel said. "And I did. Then I learned that trust, like credit, has an interest rate." A car slowed in front of the house, and then continued. I realized my phone had vibrated twice, and I hadn't looked. "Evan, 7 check. You good?" I texted back, alive. More later. He, 8 remains my ETA if you ghost me. I thumbed a heart I didn't have the energy to mean and pocketed the phone. What do you want from me? Daniel asked. It wasn't defensive. It was careful. It was the question of a man who knows the wrong desire can ruin the right day. I don't know yet, I said. An apology, a father, a medical history, none of the above. I wanted the truth, and now it won't stop talking. He nodded as if he'd had the same problem with truths before. I can give you history, he said. I can give you my blood type and my mistakes and my parents' names. I can give you a seat at Thanksgiving and a key. He paused. I can't give you a childhood. The swing creaked. A breeze moved across the porch, bringing the smell of someone else's dinner. I wanted to hate him for not kicking down a door. I wanted to thank him for not subpoenaing my early years. It's unbearable when both wants are true. I need to talk to her again, I said, and the sentence cost more than I expected. Without escape hatches. Without it's complicated. He nodded. If she asks me to disappear again? I looked at the box. At the envelopes never sent because he kept choosing the version of kindness that doesn't offend the room. Don't, I said. Not anymore. He exhaled, relief and fear riding shotgun. Okay. We didn't hug. We don't deserve to yet. When I stood, he stood with me. He didn't ask for my number because he didn't want to repeat old sins. I gave it to him anyway. Text me your medical stuff, I said, and it sounded almost like a joke two people could make when they love each other. He smiled, tired and grateful and older than the math. I will. At the bottom of his porch steps, I turned. Why the letter? I asked. Why he deserves to know. Because I ran out of ways to tell myself that secrets are shelter, he said. They're weather. They get in no matter how you tape the windows. I carried that line all the way to the car. The house had learned a new way to be quiet. Lights on in the living room. No TV. The folder where I'd left it. My mother on the couch, hands folded like a schoolgirl waiting to be called on and dreading it. You saw him, she said. Not a question. Yes. And? He has a box of my life, I said. He didn't set it on fire. He didn't turn it into a lawsuit. He set it on a porch between us. She looked at her hands. He's good at grand gestures he never completes. He filed a petition. She flinched. He told you that? He withdrew it, I said. At Dad's request. He let us have one story. Did Dad know? The word Dad came out clean, even now. Grief has seniority. She lifted her head. I saw the exact second she stopped looking like a mother and started looking like a witness. He knew, she said. Not at first. Not when we named you. Not when we painted your room and argued about whether the crib should face the window. Later. When you were 2. Daniel threatened court. Your father met him. He came home and held you so tight I thought he might break. Then he said, we are going to raise him. We aren't going to share him. She took a breath that remembered labor. I agreed. Why? Her mouth pinched. Because I chose the man who chose you. Because Daniel loved the idea of you, and your father loved you. Because I was a coward. Because I wanted a simple story. Because the world punishes women who tell 2 truths at once. She shook her head. Pick any of those. They're all right. They're all wrong. We sat in the kind of silence that makes clocks nervous. I'm not angry at him, I said, surprising us both. I'm angry at the performance. At the assumption that I couldn't survive the truth. She blinked hard. I thought I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself from a conversation where you weren't the hero. Her lips trembled. Do you hate me? I don't. I said, and meant it in the complicated way forgiveness uses don't, as a verb you practice like piano. But I don't know how to love this version of you yet. She nodded, the only honest nod people give, to something they can't fix with a sentence. What happens now? I file what needs filing, I said. I put the papers in the right rooms, so this doesn't happen to some other kid 30 years from now. I meet him again. I don't disappear because it makes a calendar cleaner. She swallowed. Do I get to be in those rooms? You get to tell the truth in them, I said. That's the price of admission. Her shoulders sagged with the relief terrible news brings, the relief of finally not carrying it alone. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I stood, went to the kitchen, poured water without tasting it. The house made the sounds houses make when they're learning a new language. Evan's name flashed on my phone. Check. Are you breathing? I typed back, yes. He's not a monster. He's also not a myth. Mom knew. Dad knew. Everyone chose. One story. So you write your own now. Me, yeah. Starting tomorrow. Sleep first. Architects don't pour concrete in the dark. I smiled, alone in the kitchen, and realized my chest felt a half-ounce lighter. Not joy. Not peace. Something more practical. Room. I returned to the living room and picked up the folder, then the county copy, then the gray box Daniel had insisted I take with me. I've been keeping it safe for you, he'd said, and for once the sentence didn't leave a bruise. I set them on the table. My mother watched my hands like she was counting new bones. Tomorrow, I said, we go to the clerk together. We say what we should have said 20 years ago. He deserved to know. She nodded, eyes wet. He did, she whispered. You do? I turned off the lamp. The house exhaled. Upstairs, the cracked ceiling waited. It wasn't a river tonight. It was a seam. Seams can hold if you stop pretending they're decoration. I lay down. Sleep didn't come quickly. But when it arrived honest. No chase. No bargain. Just a door opening into a room that, finally, had enough light to see the furniture. The sun didn't ask permission to pour through the blinds. I woke with a weight in my chest, but also something sharper beneath it. A direction. For weeks, I had been circling questions, but now the question circled me. I had the documents. I had the truth. What I didn't have was choice, at least, not anymore. My mother shuffled into the kitchen, robe tied too tight, eyes swollen from sleep or tears. She didn't hum this morning. She didn't pretend. She sat at the table before the coffee brewed. Are you really going to see him again? She asked. Yes, I said, buttering toast I had no appetite for. And this time, you're coming with me. Her eyes widened. I can't. You can, I said. Because for 28 years, you made decisions for me. This one is mine. You either sit in the room or you watch me walk away and wonder what was said without you. Silence. She stared at her hands like they might raise an objection. Then she nodded. Weak, but real. Okay, she whispered. The porch swing creaked again, but this time 3 of us sat there. Me in the middle, my mother to my right, Daniel to my left. If anyone had walked past, they might have mistaken us for a family reunion. But the air was too thick, too fragile. Daniel offered iced tea. My mother refused. Her eyes never left the porch rail. I didn't think you'd come, Daniel said to her. His voice was careful, balanced on years of regret. I shouldn't have, she said. But he insisted. He deserves it, Daniel said. Her head snapped up. Don't use that line. Not after everything. I wrote it because it was true, he said. It's still true. Their words fenced above my head, but I wasn't a spectator anymore. "Stop," I said, louder than I meant to. They both looked at me. "You don't get to argue over who owns the sentence he deserves to know. You both wrote it. You both erased it. I'm the one reading it now." My mother's lips trembled. Daniel's eyes fell. For the first time, I wasn't their child or their regret. I was their mirror. "I'm not here to referee," I said. "I'm here to decide what happens next. And I won't do it alone in a vacuum of your half-truths." The swing rocked. A cicada screamed in the trees like a warning bell. "Then ask," Daniel said finally. "Whatever you need to know. I won't hide again." I looked at my mother. "And you?" Her chin dipped. "No more hiding." So I asked. The question spilled like water through cracks. How did they meet? At a summer job, before she met my father. Why didn't she tell him? Because she was scared. Because she thought he'd leave. Because she wanted to believe a lie could become the truth if repeated enough. Did my father really know? Yes, by the time I was a toddler. He chose silence over battle. Daniel filled in the rest. His petition, his surrender, his decades of absence disguised as restraint. His calendar full of unsent cards. His house full of shadows of a boy who never sat at his table. And my mother? Her eyes shone wet as she admitted she had loved them both, in different ways. That her guilt was not for cheating, but for choosing silence. That every birthday she wondered if I'd somehow guessed. By the end, I didn't know if I was more full of answers or questions. But the silence between us was finally honest. When I stood to leave, Daniel touched the box again. "It's yours," he said. "All of it." I carried it to the car, my mother beside me. Neither of us spoke until the house disappeared in the rearview mirror. Evan poured whiskey this time, 2 fingers neat. "You look like someone rewired your skeleton," he said. "Maybe they did," I said, setting the box on his table. "This is my past, apparently. Letters, clippings, ghosts." He peeked inside. "Jesus." We drank in silence. The ice melted before either of us refilled. "So what now?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought I wanted revenge. Or confrontation. Or answers. Now I just want coherence. Coherence doesn't trend on Reddit," he said with a small smile. "I'm not chasing clicks," I said. "I'm chasing myself." He raised his glass. "Then may you finally catch him." We clinked. The sound was small, but it rang. The house looked smaller when I returned. Or maybe I'd grown in the span of a day. My mother was in the living room, a photo album open on her lap. She looked up, eyes swollen but steady. "I want to tell you everything," she said. "Not tonight," I said gently. "Tonight, just rest. Tomorrow we'll start again." She nodded. Closed the album. Set it aside like a weapon too heavy to hold. I went upstairs. The folder, the certified copy, and Daniel's gray box all sat on my desk like 3 versions of the same story. None of them complete. All of them mine now. I opened my notebook and wrote one final line. The truth didn't ruin me. The lies almost did. The next day, I returned to the river. Same bench. Same water. Different me. I didn't bring the folder. I didn't need it. The truth wasn't in the papers anymore. It was in my spine, my breath, the way the world looked less tilted. Kids still screamed joy. Joggers still passed. Dogs still hated squirrels. The world kept spinning, and for once, I spun with it. I wasn't sure what role Daniel would play. I wasn't sure what forgiveness my mother had earned. But I knew this. The story they tried to write for me was over. From here, I held the pen. And I wasn't afraid to use it.